everybody. I did say that I was going to come on a little bit later today, later than usual because of my educator and what was happening, etc. So welcome to another episode on the challenges and triumph of online teaching during COVID-19 at the Female Educators Roundtable with your host, Debby Enoe from Teacher Success Coach, and another of my guests from around the world. This is Alison. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you very much for taking the opportunity to come onto the program to share your experience of what it was like teaching online, especially you'd say to me before the show that you were teaching kindergarten. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us where you came from, etc.?
Sure. My name is Allison Giles, and I teach kindergarten. This will be my 25th year teaching. Oh. I teach in Long Island, New York, in America. And I spent 2 years in first grade, but really most of my career has been in kindergarten. And I love what I do. I would not change it for a second, but online teaching was definitely a challenge and 100% different from what I normally do every day in school.
Yeah. Thank you for that, and welcome again. Okay. Can you tell us what it was like, what your experience was like in relationship to the physical classroom and you actually teaching on the online platform? Bearing in mind, we were not trained to teach on the online platform. We actually had to teach ourselves. And some schools or some of my colleagues were fortunate enough to have actually had crash courses from their directors or from the schools, etc. Some of us had no training. We were just told that this is what's happening, and you actually had to find a way because the principals themselves didn't know a lot about the platform which we had to use and how the online setup actually worked. So more or less we were left to our devices because nobody knew what to do. So in terms of your experiences, what was that like? Take us through it, please.
Well, I always, just to give you a little bit about myself, I always felt very confident in what I do as a teacher, as a brick and mortar classroom teacher. I always felt very confident, and I always felt like I was highly effective in my delivery of instruction and my care for children and the whole bit. However, once the pandemic happened and we were all home and we were now, I took my Chromebook home, I didn't really know what to do because I'm not very tech savvy. So I worked with two other teachers on my grade level who were more tech savvy than I was. So I had to all of a sudden now become very dependent on my colleagues, which was something that I never really had to do. Like my colleagues often were dependent on me for classroom help, but now I felt like very uncomfortable with what I needed to do. So we had to teach live new curriculum 90 minutes a day to kindergartners, not review, not games, not, getting to know you activities. It was new curriculum. So it was challenging. I mean, 90 minutes, that's a long time for kindergartners. We had to do 45 minutes whole class, and then we would do 2 small group sessions. And then in addition, I had to manage tutors who were doing 2 small group sessions with other kids that I had to make sure the plans, I had to give them the plans so they could carry out lessons. So the district wanted to make sure that everybody was like pulling their weight, so to speak. So everybody had to be having contact with kids, but it required kids to sit for a very long time online. And these are young children who are not used to that.
So how old were the children? How old were you? How old is kindergarten?
Most of the kids by March were 5 years old, and some were 6, so 5 and 6. But like if we have to do this again in September when school starts, they'll be 4 and 5. So that's really little, to ask them to sit like that. And also the difference of doing online learning in March versus September. In March, the kids had already spent over 100 days with me in person. So they knew my songs, they knew my personality. They knew if I was being silly or if serious, like they really knew me. So they paid attention, they paid attention well because we had already had such a connection. Kids in September, they don't know me. They don't know each other. It's just going to be, they don't know really what we're asking of them. They've never even been to school. Like it's the very first experience. So it's very hard to be expected to do this with brand new kindergartners. I'm not really sure how that will even go. It's giving me anxiety thinking about it.
Wow. Yeah, because you see, what my concern is, how were you able to make these children sit for, you say your lessons were 45 minutes at a time?
It was one 45-minute session a day and then two 25-minute sessions a day.
So what did that look like in terms of, planning? What did that look like? Take us through, one of the lessons, please.
Okay, so I started every day with morning meetings. So in early childhood grades in New York, that's all I can speak for because that's all I've ever taught. We usually have a morning meeting, which is a calendar, and we talk about the weather, and we count how many days we've been in school, and we talk about what is the sight word of the day, and we do like a little meeting time. So we made like a slideshow, or my colleague made a morning meeting slideshow that we would go through every day and just change the slides daily. So it became a little bit more of a routine, and the kids would help me through it. Like I would call different kids to talk about what was the day of the week and what was the weather today and what is the sight word and how do you spell it? And, we'd go through that. So that kind of took about maybe 15 minutes. And then the second half hour would be a curriculum lesson. So it would either be a reading lesson, a writing lesson, math, or science or social studies. And we would just keep going with our curriculum and try and give them as much as possible because we knew they were going to be missing. They couldn't get the whole curriculum. There'd be no way, there was no way we could give them the whole curriculum. So we had to pick and choose from our units. So I would give them a mini lesson, and sometimes I would say like, okay, I want to see you write now. I would tell them to bring paper and pencil to the meeting, and I would give them a mini lesson and say, we're going to have 10 minutes and I want you to write. And if you have any questions, you can unmute and ask me a question. But just like in school, you have to do your best writing. And I would just try to make it look like regular writing workshop in school as possible. I just kept trying to make it, reading was challenging because you can't ask them to independently read. Like they wouldn't pay attention. It was just, online was definitely more challenging for young kids.
Yeah. Because you see, it is more challenging if you're giving them the curriculum as the full sense of the word, because I'm just visualizing this little thing sitting there for this length of time, right? Because I feel that teaching young children online at that age, you need to break up quite a lot, and you need to probably use a lot of play, to actually get them engaged.
Right. Well, I think one of the problems in my district was that parents that had like more than one child, they couldn't manage the time because they had 45 minutes with a kindergartner. Then the first grader had a different 45 minutes. Then another kid had another, it was just way too hard for the parents to manage it because the district, I guess, it wasn't very well planned out because we were all thrown into it. So parents were overwhelmed by the timing, and we were trying to just keep it as fun and relevant as we could, but still not having them miss their curriculum. Now, my own children who are in a different district, they had far less online time. And when their teachers did have like live lessons with them, it was more review or just social emotional checking in with them. It wasn't, it was much less new curriculum. So that's just another thing I experienced with my own children versus me as an educator.
Thank you. So how did you engage the children? And how did you keep their attention? What did you do to do that?
I would just keep calling different kids. I would give everyone, I would try and give everyone a chance every day to either answer a question or sing a song with me, or just, I tried to keep it as regular as we had it in school so that they would know what was coming next. And I just tried to get through to everyone every time, but it still required them to sit and wait a lot. 45 minutes is kind of a long time. Even if I was changing the activity midway, they still had to wait. So I didn't love it. I certainly didn't love it, but I just tried to engage them and sing with them and make them laugh or give them things to actually do so that it kept their attention.
Could you not do the lessons shorter than 45 minutes? Was that very prescriptive that it had to be 45 minutes?
Yes, every teacher had to do a 45-minute whole class lesson. So I had to keep them on for 45 minutes. So what we did was we broke it up into a 15-minute morning meeting and then a 30-minute curriculum lesson. That's how my district, kind of dictated that it would go. Every teacher had to do the same amount of time. And we thought about breaking it up into 25-minute sections, but then we'd have to go on 4 different times with them, and logging them on and off 4 different times is kind of difficult for little kids and for parents.
So you guys thought, okay. So what was the situation in terms of behavior? Did you have any behavior issues with the children?
I did. I had a couple. Now remember, kindergartners, for the most part, really listen. They are very respectful because they're so little. And so they think that you're like the best thing ever and they listen to you. I did have a boy in my class who had a one-on-one for behavior. He had a one-on-one aide, and then you go virtual, and now he's in his house and his aide is virtually in the meeting but not near him. So he would get up and jump on the couch. He would walk away from the meeting. He would turn his camera off. He would turn his microphone on and start making noises. Wow. We had all kinds of fun stuff, and I would just try. It's a little hard because I had parents listening also, but I would just try and say hey, we're over here. You have to come and sit down. Or, I would just try and reprimand without being disrespectful, because now I'm blasting out into everyone's house. So everyone,
exactly.
Everyone is listening to everything I'm saying, but he was jumping on the couch and unmuting his microphone and talking, and that is disruptive to the other kids. So
yeah.
I had a couple of kids playing video games, and I would say you have to put that down now, or some kids would just walk away, and I would say you can't walk away. This is just like in school, like at morning meeting, you can't just get up and leave. We're in a meeting and you can't just leave. You have to stay in your seat. And then they would do it. They would say, okay,
Yeah, but where were the parents though?
Well, some parents were there and some parents were working, and some parents were just overwhelmed, busy. You could see parents running around. So the parents that were there, they were pretty good, but the parents that were working or overwhelmed were just doing the best they could. And it's weird, now you're asking me to be a teacher, which is natural to me, but now I have all the parents listening to everything that is said, which is not natural. What educator has all the parents sitting right there? It's fine. And not that I'm doing anything wrong, but it's just a different aspect. It just adds another layer to this whole craziness.
So thank you. So how did you get your community? How did you form a classroom community?
Well, I mean, after spending 100 days together, we know each other very well. You know, it was that part of it I felt like was easy because we all know a lot about each other. We had spent so many days together. And everyone is, you know, had a turn and everyone is respected. And that's just always how I've run my class. Moving forward, though, that makes me very nervous because I'm not sure if I could create that community without really meeting the kids face to face or seeing them. You know, we should find out in the next day or so in New York if we can actually go back into the classroom or if we have to stay virtual. So it's just, that's like a very heavy weight on my shoulders right now of how that's going to go.
Yeah, but the fact is, yes, I understand that you actually had the start in terms of forming the community because you started it. But at the same time, the fact that you do morning meetings, you know, that would actually enable you to form your community in the same way you would actually, you know, form that in the classroom.
We'll have to, I guess that if I had to be virtual from day one, I would have to just say, this is what we're going to do every day, you know, every day, this is our calendar. And I would have to just be a little bit more over the top, you know, so that they try and pay attention. It's hard for a little kid to pay attention to a slideshow, you know, it's a lot easier for them to pay attention to real life. You know. I don't know. It's a tall task. I'm not sure if I will be half as successful with brand new kids than I was with kids that I knew for so many days.
Yeah. Another thing is, did you do play with them in terms of, you know, trying to get them engaged by using play as one of the methods we use when they were in the physical classroom?
You know, that is harder. I did try a couple of like scavenger hunt type things. Like I'm thinking of something that's red, you know, and then they would go and find something that was red, let's just say, and bring it back to the screen and then talk about it. Play was a little bit hard because they were alone, you know, so there was usually nobody there. I did several lessons on partner reading, and I tried to have them bring somebody to the meeting that they could read with. Like it could be a stuffed animal, it could be a pet, it could be a parent, it could be a sibling. So I tried that, and that worked. That was kind of cute, and that worked, and it was nice to see them reading and have a partnership. But other than that, we did a couple of show and tells also, but that was hard because it required the other kids to wait for so long. Like if you were sharing, the other kids are waiting. So it was very hard virtually. At least if we're in person, they can pay attention for a little bit longer because they can actually see the item and be in real life with it. So I really thought the play was missing in kindergarten a lot, but I'm not quite sure how to bring it back to virtual. That's something, if I have to go virtual, that I really want to think about and, you know, have them maybe do more project-based learning, or I don't know, build something on the live session today, or do something where they're emulating play more and less pencil and paper.
Right, yes. Are you a member of any of the Facebook groups? There are a number of Facebook groups out there that have different educators teaching different areas, and they do give examples of some of the things they've been using as well.
Yeah, there's one that I found. It was like teaching kindergarten virtually, and I, you know, joined that. They seem to be very tech savvy people, so it was a little intimidating to me, but I still said, you never know, I may need this. I may really need this. So I keep reading what everyone's saying, but I'm not sure I'm ready to just jump back in wholeheartedly to virtual learning.
Thank you. Right, in terms of what was your relationship with the parents? Because you got to know the parents because you spent a few, how many days offline already. So you were actually going onto the platform. So what's the relationship like before you actually went on the platform and when you went on the platform? Were there any difference?
I felt like the parents were very supportive of me. So I had known them for about 115 days, let's say. We had had one parent-teacher conference.
Okay.
I had met most of them more than once, probably 3 times, let's say. Then when we went virtual, it was time for spring conferences. So those became phone conferences. So I had a 15-minute phone conference with each family. Where I had to check in and make sure they were okay. Were they sick? Were they working? How were the kids? So I had a whole discussion with each family. And then throughout my sessions, if I was having trouble, I would sometimes ask the parents, can anyone help me? Does anyone know how to share the screen? Or does anyone know why I can't hear Johnny or something? And they were very helpful. They were, they saw I was working hard. They saw I was trying. They know it wasn't natural for me because I was asking for help. And some of them were more tech savvy, and some of them were able to tell me like what to do, which I felt, I felt like we kind of all had to help each other. It was, I didn't feel like they were evaluating me. I felt like they were more trying to help me because I was trying to help their children,
That's interesting. That's interesting because the fact that you were, it's interesting though, because you were vulnerable and you just put yourself out there because you're vulnerable in the sense that you're not techie, so therefore you needed the help from the parents, and then you just reach out. So that was also quite brave of you as well, in terms of, being vulnerable and actually asking for help.
Yeah, well, you know what? I started by saying I typically am a very confident person with what I do, but this was like so unnatural for me that it was weird because the parents knew me one way and now they were seeing me in a completely different way. And once you're live with them, there's nobody else there to help you. I was just totally like alone there. And the kids certainly couldn't help me because they're 5. And so then I was like, does anybody know? And somebody usually would unmute and say, Mrs. Giles, why don't you try this? And they were just trying to help me. So it actually was a nice experience, I guess.
Yeah, because you actually got to know the parents a little bit more. And the other thing is, exactly, because the fact is you got to know them and they were actually willing to support you and say, okay, this is what you need to do. So that in itself was a plus. And what was even for a plus for me looking at how you actually did it, you were vulnerable and you say, okay, I don't know how to do it. That was okay too. That was brilliant.
I mean, I just felt like I had no choice. I needed help. I'm not afraid to ask for help if I need it.
And I think that's, for educators, some educators have this thing that they have all the answers. And I think once you actually be honest from the offset, saying, well, I don't know what I'm doing, this is new to me, that it becomes okay. We need to stop putting it on ourselves that we have all the answers and we are the superheroes. We're not superheroes. We are parents. We are partners, everything else. We're not superheroes. The minute we start putting ourselves as superheroes, everybody expects us to do all of that without failures. And that's not right. That's a lot of pressure.
Right. Oh, definitely. I mean, I did feel pressure because I felt like I needed to lean on my colleagues more than I ever had in it, as far as creating the lessons and making the hyperlinks and hyper docs and all things that I didn't know how to do it. I was willing to work, but I didn't feel confident. So that part of it was hard for me, but I had to just go with it because we had to go live like the next day and the next day, and I had to be prepared with something. So I just had to lean on my colleagues also more than I ever had.
Thank you. The other reason why you felt like that as well, because as educators, we are control obsessed. We like to be in control of the things we do. We like to be in control of our classroom. And once we're not in control of it, you just feel lost.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a tough time also. I mean, everything, you felt everyone was scared, like nobody could go out. Like in the beginning, it was, it was like kind of scary, and then you're asking me to do something that I don't even know what you're asking me to do. So it was like, just such a crazy time. So just, I don't know how it was where you are, but it was really, really scary here.
Yeah, the same thing. It was fear of the unknown. We don't even know what was happening. You have to support children. You already don't know what you're doing. Things like that. And I constantly say on the platform, as educators, we had no choice. We had to learn the platforms.
Yes.
So it's either sink or swim, and we couldn't sink. We had to swim, and we all have swum. Don't matter how long it's taken us to swim, but we have actually swum across and we get to the other side.
Yes.
As much as you say you didn't like it, but you still did it, and you did it well because you taught your children. You taught them.
Yes, I did. Was I as highly effective as in person? No, but in this situation, I did the best I could. I certainly worked hard. I certainly tried new things. They certainly learned more than they would have the day before.
Exactly. Because you see, as we all know, we could not have taken what we had in the physical classroom to allow it just to fit into the online classroom. That wasn't working. We had to create a new setup for the online platform.
Right.
You see, and that's what we all had to do. Whether or not, as effective as we would have been in the physical classroom, most of us know that's not the case, because in the physical classroom, we're so used to that. And that is something we were trained in. So we perfected to the best of our knowledge superbly. And then we now have to go onto the online platform where it is something really new.
Yes. It was really new.
Exactly. Yeah. The other thing is, did you need to assess the children? Did you assess them?
I did. I did assess them. As far as phonics, I sent a message to the parents and I said that I was going to be doing an assessment live and to please not assist the children. And then when I was live, I said to the children, please do not ask mom or dad or anyone who's near you for help. This is just like we do in school, where we put up those little boards and you can't see anyone and you just show me what you know. So I had to preface that. And then I gave them their sounds and their words, and I tapped them out and I had them write it down, and then I had them hold up their paper to the screen so I could see what they wrote. I just had to keep reminding the parents, please don't help them. This is really just for me to know what level that they're at, so that I know where to bring my teaching. And reading assessments, I couldn't really do live. We had like a virtual platform that kind of assessed them. I mean, I didn't think it was as effective as a in-person reading assessment, but it was the best we could do. The math assessments were done like through the math program, but again, somebody could have sat right next to them and told them all the answers. So it wasn't really that valid, but I did the best I could with the live assessments anyway.
Another thing is, did you find a lot of the parents were helping the children on a general basis?
Yes, unless I said to them, please do not ask mom and dad about spelling. Like when we have writer's workshop in kindergarten in New York, I don't spell for children. There are words around the room that they're responsible for, but they don't, otherwise they'd be asking me constantly, how do you spell this? How do you spell that? And that's not effective. So they were great at that. But then when they're home in their house, they got so dependent on the parent, or the parent gets doesn't want the child to make any mistakes, so the parent just tells them all the letters, then you have children that don't take risks and don't do creative writing very well because they're so nervous about getting everything spelled correctly. So that was an issue for several families where I could hear the parent like whispering answers to them, and I know they were just trying to help, but it actually is totally not helping.
So what did you say in terms like that? What did you say to the parents in a situation like that? Or did you say anything?
I would try and say like, oh, don't ask mom and dad. I would try and like act like I was talking to the kid, but I was really saying like, Mom, stop, like really? Like, I don't need your help. I want to know what the kid thinks,
That's
like
funny.
that.
Alison, that's really funny. But did the parents actually take the hint though? Did any of them take the hint?
Not really. Some once in a while I would see like the mom or dad go like, oh, and like back away. But sometimes I guess because everyone was live together, so everyone could hear if your child made a mistake. And I could see that parents might feel like they didn't want their child to make a mistake in front of what all the other kids and families are listening. I mean, I know they're listening in the classroom, but this was different because this is like broadcast throughout your whole house.
Yeah.
So it became a little bit more like high pressure to have the right answer when the teacher called on you.
Yeah, that's interesting. That is so very true because you see the parents is thinking, oh, I don't want anybody else to know the level of my child, so therefore it's like a protection, isn't it?
Right. So if I would say like, okay, Johnny, what's 2 + 2? And then there's like an awkward pause. The parent, I can understand the parent being like, it's 4, like just say it's 4 because you don't want your child to be like, not in a good light while everyone else is listening, and not just the kids now, it's all the families are listening. Because it was broadcast through everyone's house. So you have the mom, the dad, the brothers, the sisters, everybody was listening.
Yes. So you could actually see the pressure on the child and the anxiety on the parents.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Wow. That's an aspect I never thought of. Then again, I don't teach that age group. So therefore, it's something I've never really think about. Also, in terms of when you actually in the classroom, you would actually have the ground rules, the do and the don't, the expectations. How did you actually bring that over to the online classroom in terms of what you expected of the children?
Well, like I said, the kids who would get up and like try and walk away, I would call them out and I would say, oh, where did you go? Like, where's Timothy? Like, he got up, I would act like that was ridiculous that he left, and I would bring it back to like, just like in morning meeting, if I'm teaching in my rocking chair, you can't just wander away. It's the same thing in school. Or if it was writing workshop and we were doing live writing, I would remind them words that they were responsible for. So, oh, I taught you that word in school, so you have, everyone should know how to spell it. So get it on your paper now. Or the whole microphone thing was a big deal with kindergartners, muting and unmuting. Like that took a long time, and that was painful to live through. But once they learned, they could not, just like you can't talk over somebody who's speaking in school, you can't unmute your microphone and just say whatever you want at an inappropriate time. So that was a thing. The gaming, if I saw them gaming or doing something inappropriate, I would remind them like, oh, now is not the time, put that away, or put that behind you. It's time for us to do our work now. I didn't really have a problem doing that because at this point I'm older, and I feel like I'm older than the parents. The parents just go with what I say. That none of the parents really challenge me. because they know that I'm there to try and help shape their child. So most of the parents were very supportive if I had to do any kind of like reprimanding or, reminding them of the rules.
Wow, thank you. Another thing that crossed my mind when we were talking in terms of the fact that the children, in terms of the length of the session, right? Did you give them like short breaks to have, let's say, snacks, or how, what was the situation with that?
We did not give them snack breaks, but I tried a couple of times, like in my live classroom, I always played a cleanup song. It was just a song that I liked in my life. And I would play the cleanup song. And when the cleanup song was on, it signaled the kids to clean up whatever they were playing with. I tried to play that a couple of times, like in my virtual sessions, just to remind them about how fun that song was and how they used to love it, and that it was a change of activity. But it felt very long virtually, because when we had to clean up a classroom, we needed 4 or 5 minutes, but virtually, there really wasn't that much to clean up. So it felt like it was too long, and I felt like I was losing their attention. Right. So then I didn't do that anymore. But it's definitely, I tried to break it up with we did a movement break. We did have a movement break about 20 minutes right after morning meeting. My teaching assistant led a movement break, especially for that boy who used to get up and jump on the couch. My school psychologist suggested giving him a movement break and giving a movement break for the whole class. Yes. So my teaching assistant, that was like her assignment, that as soon as I finished morning meeting, she would lead a short 2-minute movement break. And then I would get ready for the next, whatever the curriculum lesson was. So that helped. Right.
Thank you. Did you do any virtual field trip or virtual trips?
We did not do a virtual trip. We were going to, and then it just didn't happen. We were very into our curriculum. We did a picnic. We had a class picnic. But the day I was doing that, I was having major technical difficulties, and I felt kind of bad because I really wanted to have a nice picnic with them, and the technical issues that day, I felt like kind of ruined it, and it was on the last day of school. So It wasn't like I could redo it. It was like I only had one shot at it.
Right. Oh my goodness. I'm listening to you, but you seem to have a lot of challenges on that platform. What platform did you use?
We used Google Classroom, and we used Seesaw, and we used ST Math, and we used Pear Deck also.
Okay. Some of those I have never heard before. I'm familiar with Seesaw and Google Classroom.
So Pear Deck was actually really interesting. I did not know anything about it, and I did not create anything, but it's kind of like a slideshow, but that's interactive. So let's say it was math, and you were reviewing a unit. The slideshow, like let's say you said to the kids, color 4 cubes blue and 4 cubes red. They each had to color it on their screen, and the teacher could see everybody's different screen.
Okay.
So that was good for them. It just took very long to create these slideshows for a 10-minute lesson. It was like a lot of work.
Yeah.
But that was good. And ST Math is really good. It's like a math program that uses spatial temporal thinking. So it was kind of like puzzles, and they had to, it was good for them. It brings them to whatever level they're at. So it was all differentiated. Everyone was at a different level.
It now takes us to differentiation. Do you find that on the online platform that you differentiated a lot more than when you were in the physical classroom? How would you connect with differentiation on the online platform?
Well, I think the virtual classroom that I have been working with lets me differentiate more or the same as brick and mortar teaching, because we had people assigned to our virtual classrooms to help us lead small groups. In the live classroom, I had tutors assigned to my classroom to help me lead small groups. So if a tutor came in, they could take a group of struggling learners or an enrichment group in person. Online, I could say, this group needs help with this, you take this group tomorrow, and I could take a higher group or lower group. So I was able to differentiate, but it's because it's on the forefront of my administration's thinking, and they set up the virtual learning to be successful for differentiation.
Right, thank you. Because you see, with the older children, when I spoke to most of the educators and for myself, the older student automatically forced differentiation on us as educators, because they were deciding they're not coming onto the platform when they want, when you told them to. They were coming on the platform when they want. They were submitting the assignment when they want. But I suppose with the younger children, you didn't have that, because they had to be very prescriptive, because this is what your school governors want, etc. And this is what, it was conducive to the parents. So therefore they were, it was already there for you, isn't it?
Yeah, like it was like, I'm working these 45 minutes. If you want to be with me, these are the 45 minutes. If you're going to come on 20 minutes late, you're only going to get 25 minutes left. It's not like I'm just going to linger around. And when the small group sessions came, which were differentiated, I would say your group time is meeting at 10:10 to 10 whatever, 10:30. So you had to be there to get your differentiated lesson. Otherwise, we didn't record it and save it. It was everything was live. So if you weren't there, you missed it.
Okay. And then you didn't, so when they missed it, you didn't go over with them on a one-to-one basis?
No, I mean, we were working, personally, I was working more hours than almost any other teacher in any other district in Long Island that I could. Everybody I talked to was like, I can't believe you're doing that many hours. Like, my district's not doing that. We're not going live. A lot of teachers were just recording lessons and playing them back for the kids, but I was working longer and harder than most of the other, not harder, but longer hours than almost any other teacher in my area.
What was your hours? How were you? What were the hours?
Well, it was like an hour and a half a day live, a new curriculum, and many teachers around here were not doing that.
Yeah, that's heavy for for kindergarten children, though. That's heavy.
Well, my district said K to 12. It was the same requirement. Didn't matter what grade you taught. We all did the same. We all did the same hours. So, yeah.
Wow. So how would you rate the online platform in terms of, what would you say to people? If I'm saying to you, okay, what tips would you give about the online platform? What?
I mean, it's not preferred. I mean, it's certainly not preferred, but if somebody has to do it and we have to go back to it, I would say, really being tech savvy or learning about the technology would really help alleviate a lot of stress and trying to make it fun for them, and not too long. Like a mini lesson for young children should really not be more than 5 to 7 minutes. You shouldn't be talking. It's too much.
Yeah.
They have to do more of the work than you just talking, because that's going to be boring. And you're going to lose them. They're not going to pay any attention to you, and that defeats the purpose.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because you could actually see that from your own lesson, isn't it? Because you see they've given you guys 45 minutes or 30 minutes and it's not working. How much have the children actually taken yet so young, you know?
Well, I feel like virtually it was hard because there was more wait time because you had to mute and unmute. Whereas if we were sitting in a room together and we were just having a discussion and I asked you, tell me about, a time you went to your grandma's house, you might just answer it. It almost took like double the time virtually because there's a lot of the muting and the unmuting, and just the transition seems longer. So that was tricky. I wish I could have the kids unmuted and just talk to them like you and I are talking. But it's just too many kids in a classroom. You can't do it. It's too noisy.
Because at that age as well, thank you. At that age as well, they're not conscious in terms of, okay, I don't need to talk while this one talk. They all want to talk to you at the same time.
Right. They're very, they're very self-motivated. So if they want to tell you something, they just say it. And then in class, that's one thing. And it also helps keep everything rolling. But virtually, it's like you're in this box and then you have to unmute. And if the timing isn't right, it's, it's a little awkward. That part of it I didn't like, but I guess just, teaching them about when they can talk and when they should talk is good. But I think moving forward, I would like to have more project-based learning and less pencil and paper work, more play. If I have to be virtual, I need it to look a little bit more like kindergarten than to look like just getting through our curriculum.
Yeah. So this time you felt as if you were just getting through the curriculum.
Yeah, because I felt like we weren't going to finish in anything, and we had to give up like units. We had to give up writing units, reading units, math units. We couldn't get through everything because we couldn't teach reading, writing, and math every day. It just was too much. We didn't have enough time. But that being said, they were also sitting in front of a computer staring at a screen for a long time. So
that's a long
it was
time.
it's a hard call.
Yeah. For that kind of age group as well, it's just really tiring for them to be staring at the screen all these hours.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really stressful for them. I could see why some of them are actually getting up and walking away with the computer because they get tired. It's no longer interesting to them,
Right.
What are your you guys, when are you going back?
We're supposed to go back September 4th or something like that.
Okay. So what are your opinion in terms of school reopening in the physical classroom? What are your issues on that?
I mean, we're supposed to find out today or tomorrow. Our governor has until he said by the 7th of August, he would let us know. It's supposed to be if the numbers are below 5%, we can be live in person. So I'm really hoping that we can be back, because for what I do, I really need to be live. But and I'm hoping that we can get there. I feel like we're good. Our numbers have stayed low for a long time. We were in the worst place in New York, we were the worst place to be. And now I feel like our numbers have been low for a long time, and I hope they can continue and we can get back.
Right. You see, there have been a lot of issues in the press where they're saying that who does teacher feel they are? They're lazy, they're uncaring. What are your views on all of that?
Well, I certainly am not lazy. My job is very physical. In person, it's a very physical job to teach kindergarten. It's, it's physically demanding. But kindergarten is kind of like no other grade, and virtual kindergarten looks almost nothing like real kindergarten. So to me, I don't want them to miss that experience. I I understand there's a pandemic and I understand we want to keep everyone safe.
Mm.
But as far as their social and emotional learning, they have to learn to get along and to play and to share. And you can't do that behind a screen in a box. You just can't. I'm not really, I had the virus, so I know what it feels like. And I feel like personally, I feel like I want to move forward now. I lived through that and I want to move forward. So that's my own personal. I'm not afraid to go back to work. I'm not afraid of infecting someone. I'm not afraid of getting reinfected, even though maybe I could. I'm not saying I couldn't, but I'm just not afraid. I want to get back to doing what I do, teaching children live. I know that maybe that's a naive thought, but I'm certainly not lazy, and I don't want to be teaching kindergarten from my dining room anymore. I want to be, I want to be there with them.
Yeah, but you know, one of the things is the age group you teach, that's the age group would actually spread the virus more than any other age group. As you know, it's like the hug, the nose running, the hands, it's like all of that.
Yeah, I know. But I guess, maybe I could get it again, but I'm still not afraid and I still want to go back to work.
It's interesting. Okay. Have you got, listen, what you doing, Alison?
Sorry, I had to plug in my cord my phone was getting low. I had to plug it in.
Okay. Right. What would you say in relationship to what advice would you give educators, right? In terms of this online platform, etc. And then, okay, when you finish, I'll ask you the other question. What advice would you give educators?
My advice to educators would be to certainly talk to your colleagues and, pull your knowledge together. Oops, sorry. pull your knowledge together. Some of us are good at, creating the lesson. Some of us are good at keeping a calendar. Whatever you're good at, share the work so that one person's not doing all the work. You could certainly work together and create a grade level calendar, curriculum guide, lessons. It just doesn't make sense for each of us to do the same things. That would be my first piece of advice. And my second piece of advice was don't be afraid to ask for help. If you need it, ask for help.
Yeah. Thank you. What do you think educators need, or what do you think you need to move forward to the next level?
I work in a district that provides us with, the technology. They're giving us laptops. We have a Chromebook already. They're giving us an iPad. I mean, it's not really about the materials. I think, I'm not really sure what I need to be successful. If I have to be virtual, I guess what I need to do is not to forget the age group that I'm teaching. And the age group that I'm teaching needs they need time to explore, and they need time to play, and they need less. It's not only about pencil and paper, so I really do need to focus on that moving forward and not just thinking about the curriculum.
Very, very true. Very, very true. And how did you, because a lot of things the educators have been saying to me, they have been neglecting self-care. What was your issue in terms of self-care? How did you ensure that you build self-care into what you were doing, into your daily activities?
Well, something's ringing. I don't know what that is. I'm just going to ignore that. Well, I was sick, first of all, so I had to deal with that. But once that cleared, I was exercising. I was exercising from home. So I would be teaching, and then I would go on Zoom and take an exercise class, like in my living room, and then quickly change and go back to teaching the next group. And I feel like that became really important to me because I had to release some stress. Like we were stuck in this house, you know, and I couldn't get out and I was quarantined, but I had to just keep moving, go for a walk, just, I don't know, keep cooking, like brings enjoyment for me to just cook new recipes. I had to just do things that, you know, that I enjoy because my life is really about getting out. I'm very social, and it became like I couldn't do anything that I was used to. So I had to just find things that I really enjoyed and not to forget to do them.
That's good. That's important. At least you actually saw self-care as an important factor, and you actually, you know, factor it into your daily life. And that's important because there are a number of educators that were saying to me they were teaching back to back, so they were not even having time to eat or time to, you know, to take a break. And that was a concern for me.
Oh yeah, I mean, no, you have to, you know, you have to, otherwise you burn out, you know.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I have 2 kids of my own that were doing their own thing, so I was trying to, you know, it was challenging.
Yeah, yeah. So how was it for you having to support your children who are school age and you have to teach on the online platform? How was that?
It was okay because they're not young children. So I have a 17-year-old who was in 11th grade. So she was really self-sufficient. And then I have a 12-year-old who's in middle school, and she was almost self-sufficient. But they knew when I was live, they couldn't interrupt me. So, you know, my middle schooler was like in her room and she would, you know, tell me when she had live sessions, and luckily they were able to kind of manage that mostly on their own. But if they were younger, that would have been definitely a challenge for me because if they needed me, and I was almost all day long dealing with like school stuff. So that would be hard.
Yeah. Thank you. Have you got anything else you want to say to us? What would you take away from the online platform to the physical classroom?
What would I take away from it?
Yes. Yeah, from the online platform, what are you going to transport into the physical classroom? If any.
You know, I don't know. I honestly, I feel like I'm a much better live teacher. So I think kindergarten is not done well virtually. So I don't know, maybe just communicating with my parents in a different way, because I certainly connected with them on a deeper level virtually because I needed so much more help.
Okay, so, you know, you're going to take it on in terms of, you know, using that in the physical classroom, more connection with your parents. That's interesting. Now, would you ever consider in the physical classroom doing online lesson or using any aspect of online lesson online in your classroom?
I don't think so. I may just this year, if I do get to see them in person, I may try and teach them about the different platforms a little bit more in depth, so that if we do have to go virtual, it's a little easier for them to go from platform to platform.
Okay. Thank you. Have you got anything else you want to say to us?
I don't think so. I think I covered everything.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much. Right. It's really clear that some of us actually work well on the online platform, and some of us, especially the age of the children, would determine how well we actually negotiate the online platform. And it's really kind of obvious in a way that for younger children, 4 to 5 years old, it's really challenging using the online platform to really teach them, because these are children who play and who learn through play, and they're interactive. And it's really challenges that we could see. How are we going to engage them, and how are we going to maintain them in terms of playing? Because that's how they learn, through play. And on the online platform is really difficult to do that because they're all in their own homes. So, you know, that's one of the challenges. So even though you do, you know, scavenger hunt or whatever, it is not the same as getting them to be all there and observing them, playing with each other, interacting, all of that. So it's really have proved that how challenging it is to teach kindergarten 4 to 5 year old on the online platform. For me, I would not know where to start. Because in terms of what would I do with this little 4 year old, what would I teach them? How would I teach them? Especially when you're so used to getting down at their level and playing with them in the classroom, on the bean bags, on the carpets, and then now you have to say, okay, you're in your house, this one in that house, let's play. It's challenging.
I know. Yep.
You know, it's challenging. It's challenging.
Yep.
Yep. Thank you very much, everybody. Can you please like, share, and comment, please? Can you share this? Because there's lots of gold in some of the things that the educators are telling us. They're actually saying to us what was real for them, not what anyone else say, because we've had it so long where everybody have been our mouthpiece for us. But this is real. This is what we have actually found out teaching on the online platform. And when people constantly say about educators are lazy, they don't want to go back to school, they're uncaring, they're not interested about the children they teach, that's rubbish. In order to be an educator, you have to be passionate. Education does not make us millionaires. We are in the job because we love what we do. We have a purpose, we have a passion, we have a mission. Because if we do not have those, there's no way we're going to be educators. Because education involves a lot. And I could talk to all the educators, and I spoke to so many educators. Not one of them had said to me, oh yes, well, I went into teaching because I want to become a multimillionaire. Hey, definitely not. If anything, it's made us much poorer than we've actually been when we started off. So you guys have to get this myth out of your mind that we are uncaring, we're lazy, we're not interested about our children, etc. We are interested, but at the same time, the same way you guys are afraid of catching the virus and are afraid of the unknown and are afraid of what's going to happen, we too are afraid, because you must remember, we are not super nothing. We're not superheroes. We're just human beings like all of you out there. And we also share the anxiety you have, even more so, because the anxiety we share is for the 20 or 30 children we have in our care, because we're also anxious about how they're going to negotiate when they go back, you know, what their mental health would be like, what their emotional health would be like. As parents, you're only concerned about your child. As educators, we're concerned about all the children we're teaching, because we want them, how are they going to cope when they actually get back to the physical classroom? Or if they're going back on the online classroom, how are they going to cope? Those are all our children in our care. So those are the anxiety we also have. So in terms of when people say, no, we don't care, etc., that's rubbish. And we won't get rich becoming educators. We do it because we're passionate. We do it because we have a mission. We also do it because we feel that we want to make children's life better or people's life better, because we have, you know, knowledge that we feel we want to impact on other people. So you guys need to start getting it right out there. Instead of blaming us for everything else, that we're lazy, etc. We just demonstrating fear like everybody else. Once you start remembering that we are educators, second, the primary factor, we are human beings. The primary factor, we are mothers, we are fathers, we are, you know, we are partners, we all of that. So you guys have to start looking at educators from that aspect. Thank you very much, everybody. Remember, I am not ranting. I'm just telling you as it is. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for listening. Have a fantastic evening and stay blessed.